This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the Town of North Haven.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Frieda, North Haven's first Selectman, and welcome to our October Board of Selectmen meeting. I'm joined, as always, by our second Selectman, Mr. William Piper, and our third Selectwoman, Ms. Sally Boemi. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to ask everyone to stand for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item number 2, are there any public comments to tonight's agenda? Okay, we'll move to item number 3, the approval of the Board of Selectmen meeting minutes of September 5th. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll second Sally's motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
I don't have any slides tonight, but I want to share some what I think is important news, and that is that very shortly you will see the old Donato's restaurant, the old Howard Johnson's, being torn down over at the fairgrounds site after what seems to be 20 years of that being unoccupied. Now, I can't tell you what's going to happen yet because I am under sort of a confidentiality on that, but this week, if you go by there, like let's say tomorrow morning, you'll see demo painted in, I think, orange. That will come down. Quality Construction will be taking that down, hired by the contract or hired by the owner, and in the process of putting a project together that involves the owner of that building, the North Haven Fairgrounds, and I think it's going to be a good site with a couple of different users, which I hope the public likes. So you'll hear more about that from me in the coming weeks. So that is what I wanted to share tonight. And next month, I'll probably have some slides illustrating exactly where we are on economic development. And on October 29th, we're hosting an economic development breakfast. We're inviting members of our business community, many of whom I were with this past week. And I will unveil latest updates on economic development in town. So thank you. Okay, Sally, I know you asked to put something on the agenda.
Yes, item 5, I wanted to discuss sewer use fees. I have some documents. You'll have to excuse my handwriting on them. There's one for you, one for Bill. You can follow along as well. Sure. Every year in September, the Sewer Commission, the Water Pollution Control Authority, commonly known as the Sewer Commission, meets in September. They hold a public hearing and they set the sewer in fee for the upcoming year. You probably all got your sewer use notices or in the mail when they're payable by the end of the month. So I went to speak at the public hearing, and I was a little disappointed, Mike, you weren't there. I'm sure you had a good reason because you're a very busy man, but that is their biggest meeting of the year with the public hearing and the setting of the rate. So that's why because you weren't there, I felt like this, as you know, I can only talk to you about town affairs here at a Board of Selectmen meeting. So I wanted to share my thoughts that I had at that public hearing with you and Bill. My ideas and analysis was very well received by the board, and they said they would give it due consideration. So if you look at page 1, this is the handout that they gave for the folks, which was me, who attended the public hearing. And you could see the total revenue is that $4,126,000. But $586,000 of that revenue is from North Branford. So I subtracted that out, and I came up with what you see in my handwriting there, $3,540,555 is the North Haven revenue for our sewer use. So what I did was I looked at type 1 and type 2. You see those two sources of revenue. Type 1 is single-family residences. Type 2 is two-family residences. So I totaled those up, the $2.6 million figure and the $48,000. And the calculation is at the bottom. That's 2.7 million, 2,701,370. And I compared that to the total North Haven revenue, 3,540,555. So from the residences, whether it's single family or two family, the WPCA is collecting 76% of the North Haven revenue from the residences. And then I did the same calculation for type 3, which is the commercial industrial users in town, and they pay $5.18 per 1,000 gallons. And we, according to this new budget, it's $839,000. So I put that over the 3.5 million. And so the commercial industrial is contributing 23.7% of the North Haven revenue. And so what I did was I looked at those comparisons compared to the assessed value. And that's why the last page that I have for you, page 4, is the most recent grand list of 2023, which is the most recent one. And that's the one that our taxes are based on for this year. You both, I'm sure, remember this document from budget season. And you could see that the residential for the 2023 grand list is 52.4%. And if you add up the percentages for commercial, which is 17.9, plus industrial, which is 5, plus personal property, which is property businesses have to run their business, of 15.4, well, that totals, going back to the first page, it's 38.3% of the assessed value of our total grand list. So in other words, our residences are 52.4% of our grand list, yet they're contributing 76% to the revenue with their $370 single resident sewer use payment, or $740 for a two-family residence. So they're contributing 76% of the revenue to run the sewer system, but residences are only assessed at 52.4%. And the commercial industrial make up 38% of our grand list, and they're only paying 23% of the revenue that is collected to run our sewer system. And so I thought, I would say to you that if you have an opportunity to talk to the town engineer, I think that he was very impressed with this analysis and told me he never considered analyzing it in that fashion. They just always increase the residential amount by the same percentage as the commercial industrial. So both, and you see this calculation on the bottom of page 2, they both went up 8.8%, which seems fair, but when you look at the percentage that commercial industrial is contributing versus their assessed value, I think we need to sort of realign that a little bit. And I did ask the commission the following question. I asked if that 518, which is the new rate per 1,000 gallons for the commercial industrial users, how does that compare to other towns? And they just weren't very sure. Yeah. They thought that our residential of 370, and again, it's going up. It was 340. This is the second year it's going up. And I want to make it very clear, I did support the increase because I understand the expenses involved. Yeah. I'm not questioning the need for the increase. It was a $30 increase. It went from $340 for your single family house to $370. I'm not questioning the need for that increase. What I'm questioning, and what I'd like the Sewer Commission, which you are a voting member, Mike, by charter, to think about is maybe a little bit of a realignment of that percentage increase as compared to assessed value. I'm not saying I expect it to be exactly 38% that we collect from the businesses. You know, we want to remain business friendly, and I know you work very hard on economic development, and I respect that. But I think that there could be some adjustment here. You know, those commercial industrial enterprises that are paying only 23% in, even though they own 38% of the assessed value, they're here in our town to make money. Our residents in the 1 and 2 family homes that are contributing 76%, even though they combined only own 52.4% of our grand list, they're here to raise families. And many of them, as we know from certain public comments at our budget town meeting, are struggling.
Right.
And so this impressed the board, and they said they would take a look at it. I just wanted to share my analysis with you to think about it in the future. You know, whenever you hear about, well, increasing disproportionately, which would have to happen a couple of times in the future, the commercial industrial rate, you say, well, they're just going to pass that on to the consumer. But, you know, there's some big taxpayers in this town, commercial industrial taxpayers, and their customers are all over the world. They're not all here in North Haven. So I just wanted to provide you with this data and this analysis for you to think about as a voting member of the Sewer Commission for your next evaluation of increases. That's all.
Yeah,
So
right.
thank
So-
you for allowing me to make that presentation.
Yeah, let me make some comments. First of all, I think you did a very nice job with this.
Thank you.
It makes sense. Now, before I tell you what I think we can do here, let me tell you the history of this, ladies and gentlemen. So the way this works is, you know, I'm a member of this WPCA, but in the end, nothing happens without my final approval. So, because the engineer and I meet before the WPCA meetings, and I'm out every night. I'm guest speaker here, I'm at all these events, so that's why I wasn't at this meeting. But this proposed increase was going to be higher. I got involved, it came to me, no, it's too much. You see, what's happening with this is, and then I want to get back to Sally's fine analysis here, is that we didn't raise the rates for years here. And we've got a situation where if we don't bump up the rainy day fund on the WPCA side, it's separate from the town, we're looking at anywhere from $25 to $33 million a year in a bonding package in the next few years, because we have electrical outdated systems there. The last time this plant was updated was in the early 80s. We have digesters that the Department of Environmental Energy Protection is telling us that we have to correct. That's $3 million right there. And then we've got ancient digesters. You have to have a digester in a Water Pollution Control Authority plant. So we needed to raise the rates to boost up the rainy day fund. In theory, that is to do all of the maintenance and upgrades so the town does not have to bond for it. At the new rate, $370, the surrounding towns, their Wallingford's $90 higher. We are from $90 to like almost $200 less than the surrounding towns in this region. But coming back to Sally's analysis, I'm in agreement with you on this.
Thank you.
And I think, and I'll propose this to the engineer, and I think that the solution on this is to bump the $5.18 per gallon up a certain number
Right.
to help equalize this.
Yes.
So I got to compliment you. I think you did a nice job on this. And I'm
Thank
in
you.
agreement that we should try to pursue this.
I appreciate that very much. And again, I was not questioning the need for
I
the
understand.
increase.
Yeah.
I understand. I heard explanations about the facility and all that. Just a quick history, 2018, these are all single family, and usually the two family are double it.
Yeah.
So in the year 1819, it was 305. Then 1920 and 2021 and 21-22, it was at 315.
Yeah.
So it did stay level for 3 years. Last year, the 22-23, it was 340, and now this year, which is known as 23-24, the sewer use is 1 year in arrears.
Right.
Our real estate taxes are paid in advance, but our sewer use is paid in arrears. So the current year is 23-24 is 370. So I agree, there was some stability, but the last 2 years, because of rising costs and issues with the plant.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think that's a great solution, is to look at maybe next time just increasing the commercial industrial, or not always having to increase both by
Yeah.
the same amount.
I agree.
And then that will change these percentage contributions.
Right. Because in listening to this analysis, I'm very close with the Greater New Haven WPCA. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, I have contacts all over the state. So I know a lot from all the years I've been here and for the relationships I've made. After you were explaining this, I was reminded of the fact that the Greater New Haven Water Pollution Control Authority, I believe it's $7.85, Bill and Sally, per gallon versus our 5.18. So that's why I think there's some room here. I agree with
Okay,
you.
okay, thank
So
you.
we're going to address
But-
this. I'll address this with
Yeah.
Andy, our engineer, and we'll bring
Yes.
this up in the next meeting, okay?
I appreciate that. Yes, Andy was very interested in my analysis. So thank you for your time and attention.
Very good.
And the other thing too that, which again, they didn't share with you and is, you have a 162 million, a little bit more than 162 million gallons for industrial and commercial property that they base the charge on. How many gallons are actually processed for the two types of residential property? See, so,
Well, that's a good, let me.
Well, it has
yeah.
sewer flow on
Right.
the bottom, lower left. Is that what you're referring to?
no, I mean, we know that's 100, is that the total sewer
I-
flow? Is that the same as gallons?
Yeah, I think.
That says total expenditures, at the bottom. I don't know, it's a
Now
good percent.
yeah.
See- So if that's the case, then there's 901 million or almost 902
No. The
versus
total
162.
expenditures, bill, is for that 4,520,929. See, there's a revenue budget here at the top, and it has 5 lines, and then an expenditure budget with a total So that total expenditure, even though it's over the little chart in the lower left, is irrelevant to it.
Yeah.
So sewer flow, your guess is as good as mine what that refers to. I think I know.
Well, sewer flow is,
Yeah,
sewer
the
flow.
7,169 one-family houses, what's the sewer flow for?
Well, I mean, it's
Or that
901
is-
million for North Haven and 127 million for North Branford. That 901 figure for North Haven, my guess is it includes, once it gets to the end of the road, it's hard to tell if it's residential or commercial. I think that's the total.
So, but
But I don't know, you've probably seen this document.
yeah, I've seen it. So I think the relevant point here, though,
Yeah, we're
is
getting
this.
off track.
It's a little bit off track, but it's relevant from this standpoint, because it's something I neglected to say. The history of this, going back 25 or 30 years, the history of it and the reason for the businesses having a lesser rate was that there was back then, long before we were involved, okay, probably before you were on the Board of Finance too, the assumption was that single-family homes, average family of 4, daily dishwashing, showers, flushing toilets, baths, high utilization of water. Businesses, they don't take showers there, they don't take baths there, they're just flushing toilets during the day. So that was the original concept as to why it was lower. But I think through what you've done here, I think it's pointed out that we got to raise that $5.18 a
Right.
gallon.
Yes, thank you. And we have a lot of restaurants that use a lot of water.
That's true.
But
Yeah.
I've had some restaurant owners say to me, yes, but the water that we use, leaves the restaurant when the people drink the coffee. Who knows where it ends up and whose sewer system? I mean, this is what we were talking about. I mean, this is what you guys talk about at sewer meetings. But I've had restaurant owners say, not every bit of water, because their rate, the 1,000 gallons, it's based on what comes into the restaurant.
Right.
And they're right. A lot of the water they use is for beverages, and it doesn't go down the drain. It goes into the bellies of their patrons who then leave. So I don't know.
Now, we're bordering on getting a little bit too graphic here,
Yeah.
but it's a relevant point, though, so
Well,
we're not.
this is why you might get some pushback from, I agree with the manufacturing businesses.
Yep.
What their water use is and some of their manufacturing processes, I don't know.
Mhm.
I mean, they have, but
So the other way to look at it, the other dimension to look at is that of the residential units in North Haven. We're showing 7,169, and 68 two-families or 66 two-families are using the sewers. There are a lot of residential units in town that don't have sewers. So that actually, in your assessed value, that includes not only dwellings, residential dwellings that have sewer, but dwellings that don't have sewer.
well, then that makes it
See, so
even
you've
worse.
You've overstated, so we may have overstated the
No,
assessed,
because,
because they're in the assessed value of 52.4%, maybe 20% of those units that are assessed don't have sewer.
well, then that would make the 76% even higher.
No, but again,
Yes.
but again, I think, but I think we need to look at that as well, just
Yeah.
to see, in terms
Yeah.
of gallon
Well,
flows.
the
and how
people
many-
that aren't
Right,
hooked up to the sewer are mostly in the northwest
right,
corner. And they're not using the sewer
Not
and
using
they're
it.
not paying for the sewer.
Right. So the average pump out for those in that section of town is about $440 a year, people, if you do it every year, so. But,
and to clean out the septic tanks.
and by the way, for those watching who may be wondering, we'll close it off this way, because this is another key point, I think, that for those wondering why that section, the western part, the northwestern part, doesn't have sewers, to do it up there is probably a $60 to $80 million project, because there's a lot of red rock up there, and the drilling and the breaking of that red rock is very comprehensive. So consider this, ladies and gentlemen, that 30% of the town is on septic, 70% of the town is sewer. So what that means is that if we were to bond for $60 million for 30% of the town, the other 70% could rightfully say, but wait a minute, I have to participate in the debt service on that in the annual budget when I'm already paying for getting a sewer bill. And this is why, even going back to my predecessors, going back to the late 60s, when this came up, that was the issue. Because it's got to go to a public meeting to make that bonding package, and 70% of the people are already paying for the WPCA.
Right. Well, the sewers mostly came into town in the 60s and early 70s. And all the if the sewer ran in front of your house on the street, you were hit with a sewer assessment.
Right.
Even if you didn't hook up to the sewer, which my father was very proud not to hook up. He was proud of his septic system that he put in. But anyway, even if the line ran, in front of your property, you had to pay the assessment because it was called a benefit assessment,
Yeah, benefit.
and that was considered a benefit to the property. So, if you were to do a sewer assessment against just the 30%, that it would be outrageous.
Outrageous, exactly.
I mean, I remember our sewer assessment was about $3,000,
Right.
and you had 10 years to pay it off.
Right.
But that was a long time ago.
This is
Yeah,
good, though.
well, we're getting off track. I I remember being told that the reason Northwest didn't have sewers is because of Route 15. It was so low, they couldn't go under it to get up there. I don't know.
And perhaps that,
And they couldn't pump, but,
yeah, I mean, maybe that's one of the reasons
but
why
I'm
it's so
sure it
costly.
has to also do a combination of that and the rock, as you
Yeah.
said. I mean, down here, it's all sand down
Yeah,
here.
right. All right, this is good. We'll look at it. Thank you, Sally.
Good job,
Okay, thank
Sally,
you.
bringing
Good
this issue up.
All right.
Very good.
Sorry to bring up a sewer topic, but it's part of our government. And
Yeah.
it's an important part of our governmental service.
It absolutely is.
It is. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so let's go to property tax refunds. Bill and Sally, you can handle it from here.
Well, I think there's one I have a problem with down here that I don't know if I'm going to support, the seventh one.
Oh,
But
the $12.63, yes.
I didn't
so-
even think that car was worth that much, but okay, we'll move on. So I think
All right, so here.
I think the second selectman has to recuse.
I'm gonna recuse myself
So I
because,
will make a motion to,
just for the public, it's only $12.63, so.
yes,
Just over the $5 that,
right. So I'll make a motion to approve all, even that one, property tax refunds reflected on our agenda.
All right, I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
And Bill, for the record, has recused.
Recused.
Yes. That's it. It looks, we're at
Number
number 7.
7.
All right, the next regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen is Thursday, November 7th at 6:30 here in the upstairs conference room at North Haven Town Hall. Public comment. Mary White, oops, sorry.
Mary White, Summer Lane. I have 2 topics tonight, yay. So the first topic is, I wanted to talk a little bit about the early voting that's available. Some people are confusing it with absentee, so I thought, well, let me take a look at it and see what it's all about and share the information. So the early voting begins October 21st. And let's see, unregistered voters may also register to vote in person every day of early voting at the early voting location. And for North Haven, I called the registrar's voters office. They said that the location is at the town hall. And she said something about you come in, there'll be signs, and something about maybe the second conference room. And early voting ends on November 3rd. And so what is this early voting? It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a chance for registered voters to cast a ballot before Election Day. All voters seal their choices in an envelope. Ballots will be secured, unopened until Election Day. Let's see, so the time of the voting is 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And however, on October 29th and October 31st, they are having extended hours, and those are from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And the last thing is that there is a question on the ballot, and the voters in Connecticut are going to be asked a question about amending the state of Connecticut's constitution. And it is to allow no excuse voting by mail. So currently, state law requires voters to give a reason when requesting an absentee ballot, such as sickness or absent from the town on Election Day. Let's see, so they tried this 10 years ago in 2014, and the measure failed. So we'll see what happens this time. I personally am gonna vote no, but that's just me. Okay, so the second topic is, so at the August and September Board of Selectmen meetings, I spoke about the adult use cannabis retailer, that is the adult use recreational cannabis retailer, proposed for 104 Washington Avenue. And I asked people to attend the planning and zoning meetings. So this month, I have more information to share in addition to the request to attend the October 7th Planning and Zoning meeting. So I have here 3 articles. So we've got, that's the New Haven Register article. This is the North Haven Citizen article, and this is the Courier article. So perhaps you read them. So comments on that, all 3 incorrectly use the word dispensary or dispensaries. And we learned last month that that's about medical marijuana. And this is recreational cannabis retailer that's proposed. So all of them left half the story out. They did not mention the harm to the public's health cannabis use causes. None mentioned or printed the list. So Tom White, he's going to be talking about children overdosing on cannabis edibles, and he's going to talk about the list. So I am going to talk about the harm cannabis use causes to the public's health. So all the facts that I'm going to list have been extrapolated from CDC, American Chemical Society, National Institute on Drug Abuse, American Lung Association, PATH study, that stands for Population Assessment of Tobacco Health, numerous medical journals, and 2 studies published by the famed Dr. Deepak D'Souza from Yale School of Medicine, who has been studying the impacts of cannabis on human health for over 25 years. So here we go. So while society may have forgotten the negative impact that weed can have on the brain, science has not. Cannabis use impairs several areas of cognition, including problems concentrating and difficulties remembering and learning, which may have considerable impact on users' daily lives, such as reduced educational attainment for adolescents, poor cognition in adulthood, and in adults, poor work performance, and of course, impaired driving. There are still no tests that can be given to determine how high drivers are who are under the influence of cannabis and thus driving impaired. THC, the main psychoactive compound in cannabis, has a negative impact on the brain's higher levels of thinking. Those executive functions include the ability to make decisions, remember important data, plan, organize, and solve problems, as well as control emotions and behavior. Cannabinoids impair all stages of memory, including encoding, consolidation, and retrieval. THC produces positive and negative symptoms in healthy individuals, such as suspiciousness, paranoid and grandiose delusions, derealization, distorted sensory perceptions, anxiety, deficits in working memory recall, psychomotor retardation, and emotional withdrawal. States that have legalized medical and recreational marijuana have an increase in cannabis use disorder and have an increase in dabbing, vaping, weed use. The vapor produced by butane hash oil, a cannabis extract, has 3 to 5 times more THC than the plant itself. Dabbing can look like a USB device. It's a disturbing and dangerous trend. Dabbing, a form of vaporization, produces toxins like benzene, a known carcinogen. Marijuana vaping by school-aged youth doubled between 2013 and 2020. 1 in 3 grade 12 students reported vaping weed, their preferred method to get the buzz they desired from THC. Teens are suffering from a deadly lung disease called EVALI due to vaping weed. 84% of the EVALI cases were associated with cannabis-containing products. So I have a visual for you, and Tom is going to be my assistant here. Maybe on that side? Would you stand on that side? Okay. So what you have there is, it's very hard to read, so I'm going to tell you exactly what's on there. So that chart is from the American Lung Association. It was in the New Haven Register. I spotted it, and that is dated April 2nd, 2022. So it
Tom, hold
shows,
it up just a little bit
Yeah,
more.
yeah.
I'm just looking at what I can see over here.
okay, great, thank you.
Yeah,
And
that's
it
better.
can get on the camera
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
I think that,
It's on camera.
Is there? Okay.
I
Yes,
think
it
you're
is.
good now.
Thank you. So it shows a woman, a mom, with smoke around her head. It says, "My kid would never vape." More than 5 million American kids vape, which means they're being set up for a lifetime of addiction. Good students, athletes, kids who'd never smoke regular cigarettes, all types of kids, maybe even yours. Talk to your kid about vaping. Start by getting the facts at talkaboutvaping.org. And at the bottom, it says in caps, "Get your head out of the cloud." Thank you, Tom. So, do you think there's not a vaping problem with North Haven's youth? You would be wrong. In February of this year, the North Haven Local Prevention Council, LPC, released 7 strategies for community change for vaping reduction. Working with Tobacco Research and Youth, TRY, they are gathering data specific to North Haven's youth by a suggestion box and QR code at the North Haven Counseling Center, where questions are asked anonymously about vaping use. LPC wants to do prevention work and bring awareness of the harmful risks of vaping. The CDC warns that teen use of marijuana has been linked to a range of mental health problems in teens, such as depression or anxiety, even psychosis. The teen brain is not fully developed until the age of 25. Consuming 1 or 2 joints before the age of 14 causes brain damage in teens. 1 in 6 teens who use marijuana regularly become addicted. And so, once again, I ask people to attend the Planning and Zoning meeting on October 7th. The meeting is at 7 o'clock at the library in the community room, and ask the commission to vote no on the adult use recreational cannabis retailer proposed for 104 Washington Avenue. And in the event you cannot attend, please email a letter of opposition to the Planning and Zoning Commission, care of Alan Frederickson, Land Use Administrator, and his email is Frederickson, FREDERICKSEN .allen @town.north-haven.ct.us. And one final comment, as always, call the Land Use Office at 203-239-5321 on Monday, October 7th, before 4:30. And you can ask and verify if the adult use recreational cannabis retailer is still on the agenda. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to tell the rest of the story. It's left out.
I just have one comment, Mary. Back to the early voting, you didn't seem quite sure where conference room 2 is. It's on the main floor, what I consider the first floor.
Yep.
Past the registrar's office, it's on the right, across from the town clerk's office.
Oh, okay, great. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Barry. Mrs. Barrett? Nope.
If Mr. White, would you have something to say, Tom? Please. It makes sense for the
Yeah,
two of you
it
to go
does.
when I do it. That's fine.
Tom White, Summer Lane. I'm going to speak about the dangers of cannabis edibles and how children who ingest them are poisoned and sickened, and then I'll speak about the list. More young children are getting sick from inadvertently eating marijuana edibles, according to a study published January 2023 in the journal Pediatrics. Calls to poison control centers about kids 5 and under consuming edibles containing THC rose from 207 in 2017 to 3,054 in 2021, a 1,375% increase according to the study. Nearly all of the children, about 97%, found the edibles at home. The findings were based on more than 7,000 pediatric cases reported to the National Poison Data System, a database that tracks reportings of poisonings. An ER doctor in Philadelphia noted, in quotes, "I think The pattern that we're seeing is well represented by this study, said Dr. Kevin Osterholt, the medical director of the Poison Control Center at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, who also said, and quote, the emergency physicians all across the country have been recognizing what they believe to be a sharp increase in both young children and teenagers showing up to emergency departments for THC intoxication. Quote, a typical edible can contain around 100 milligrams, he said, but even adults often start with about 1/10 of that. But some recreational marijuana products can contain as much as 500 milligrams of the THC, he added. We researched and found many examples of children who overdosed on marijuana edibles throughout the United States. There are examples from 2022, 23, and 24. There were so many, here are just 12. By the way, this is happening in Connecticut too. First is Akron, Ohio, September 7th, 2022. 8 middle school students sickened by eating marijuana edibles candy gummies, with some going to the hospital. Number 2, Los Angeles, California, May 13th, 24. 8 high school students got acutely ill by ingesting marijuana edibles during a field trip and were transported to the hospital. Number 3, St. Louis, Missouri, November 11th, 22. 6 middle school students got sick after eating marijuana candy edibles, and 3 were transported to the hospital. Number 4, Concord, North Carolina, December 6th, 23. 7 middle school students got sick after eating a marijuana edible Rice Krispie treat, and 7 were taken to Atrium Health Caribus. 5, Bryan, Texas, March 2nd, 23. 3 high school students were rushed to the hospital after consuming marijuana edibles containing THC. 6, Pontiac, Michigan, May 17th, 24. 2 middle school students were transported to the hospital after ingesting marijuana edibles. Number 7, Boston, Massachusetts, May 2nd, 23. 4 students in the upper campus, 1 were taken to a Boston hospital after 3 ingested a cannabis-infused chocolate edible, and 1 was transported after vaping. 8, New Haven, Connecticut, January 4th, 22. 5 students at Bishop Woods Magnet School started vomiting after ingesting marijuana edible chocolate candy brought to school by another student. 9, New Haven, Connecticut, April 7th, 22. 5 high school students from Hill House High School were taken to the hospital after ingesting a marijuana edible. 10, Los Angeles, California, December 1st, 22. 10 middle school students overdosed on cannabis edibles, with at least 6 taken to the hospital. 11, Arcata, California, May 26, 22. 3 third-grade students were sickened after ingesting cannabis edible gummies brought in by a classmate. 12, New Britain, Connecticut, September 17, 2024. 2 middle school students had a severe reaction when they consumed cannabis edibles. Both were treated by EMS. I want to talk about regarding the 3% municipal sales tax revenue from recreational cannabis sales. It is not that much, estimated at $300,000 per year. There are some rumors about how the money can be utilized. Some think it could reduce the mill rate. That's not true. It can be used to pave more roads. That's also not true. It can be used to add another bulk trash pickup. That's also false. It can be put in the general fund to help pay the town's expenses. That's also not true. That money does not benefit all the residents of the town of North Haven. Here is the list of only 6 purposes for which the 3% municipal recreational cannabis sales tax revenue can be utilized. Number 1, streetscape improvements and other neighborhood developments where the cannabis retailer, hybrid retailer, and micro cultivator cultivator is located. Number 2, education programs or youth employment and training programs in the municipality. Number 3, services for individuals living in the municipality who were released from the Department of Corrections, custody, probation, or parole. Number 4, mental health or addiction services. Number 5, youth services programs or juvenile review boards. And number 6, community civic engagement efforts. Cannabis establishments are currently located in New Haven, Brantford, and Hamden. People can order their recreational cannabis or medical cannabis online and have it delivered to their front door. The majority of the residents in town will not benefit from the 3% recreational cannabis municipal sales tax revenue. Studies and science have proven cannabis use causes harm to the public's health in children, adolescents, and adults. This adult use recreational cannabis retailer proposed for 104 Washington Avenue must be voted down. Please come to the PZC meeting on October 7th and ask the commission to vote no. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you. Mrs. Barrett.
Good evening, Selectmen. Nancy Barrett, 1 Crestview Drive. I'd just like to start off by congratulating Selectman Boehme and the League of Women Voters for running a fantastic debate 2 nights ago that I think really set the bar for really fair debates. And this particular one was a debate among the 3 candidates for state senate for the 34th district. And you can, anyone at home can now watch that on NHTV. It was recorded, and I encourage you to please do so, because the whole purpose of debates is not to see who can win, but ultimately for the public to become informed about the various candidates' positions on a wide variety of different topics. So I thought that was really very, very well done, and I commend you, Sally. Second, I'd like to encourage everyone, since this is the last Board of Selectmen meeting before the November election, to please get out and vote on November 5th. And it doesn't matter whether you do it in early voting or absentee ballots or you do it in person. All of the polling sites will be open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. on November 5th. And I encourage everyone to do your civic duty and please get out and vote. Okay. So the one thing that I would like to discuss this evening is I have a procedural question regarding the Sackett Point Bridge renovation project. I know it's complete. I know that we've already had a town meeting in which the additional $3 million has been approved. And I personally am thrilled that this project is complete because it makes it much easier for me to get from my house over to Universal Drive. But let me just remind the audience who's listening, both those here present and those at home, just to give you a few facts about this project. So first, the bridge at Sackett Point Road, so the one that's near the intersection with Universal Drive and goes over the Quinnipiac River, was originally built way back in 1939. And it was identified as being in decline by the State Department of Transportation, or DOT, about 25 years ago. And of course, it continued to decline until it was replaced. Back in the early 2000s, even before this Board of Selectmen was involved with this particular this office, and Mr. Frieda took office, a conceptual renovation project was negotiated with cost sharing between the federal government, the state of Connecticut, and the town. And for the then estimated $12 to $13 million project, the Federal Highway Administration would cover about 80% of the total costs. The state of Connecticut, through the DOT Surface Transportation Program, would cover 10%, and the town of North Haven would cover the remaining 10% of total costs. Now, 19 years ago, at the September 2005 annual town meeting, the town approved a resolution for debt financing for this particular project in the form of bonding for up to, but not to exceed, $12 million. And then upon completion of the project, the town would be reimbursed by federal and state grants for all of the costs except for the town's 10% share. 5 years after that, in early 2010, still, this is 14 years ago, the scope of the bridge renovation project was defined to include remove the existing bridge on Sackett Point Road over the Quinnipiac River and replace it with a bridge that will carry 4 lanes of traffic. 9 years after that, in October of 2019, the project finally went out to bid. So solicitations for contractors to bid on this state project was posted on the Connecticut State Contracting Portal. A company that goes by the name GM2 was hired as the project general contractor at a bid of about $11.1 million, so within our $12 million budget, to renovate 1,650 feet east to west roadway along Sackett Point Road and replace approximately 164 feet long 2-span integral abutment bridge founded on piles. The project would be completed in 3 phases over 3 construction seasons to produce a wider bridge with sidewalks and shoulders. So as of the end of fiscal year 22-23, so that's the end of June 2023, the town had a cumulative expenditure on this particular project of $12,105,689. So this information was included in the comprehensive annual financial report. So as you can tell, that number exceeds $12 million. And this project was completed in August of 2024. At the 2024 September annual town meeting, a resolution was passed to approve an additional $3 million in bonding for the project. Now, that's all just context, okay? So from this information, we can conclude the following statements. The 14-year delay from town meeting approval in 2005 to the project start in 2019 correlated with a 25% increase in total cost. It went from 12 million to 15 million. The original town meeting approved $12 million budget for this project was exceeded by June of 2023. Almost all of the $3 million additional costs seem to be concentrated in the last 14 months of the project. So we don't know the breakdown of either the total or the incremental costs. Some went to the contractor, some of course have to go to legal fees and financing fees and other miscellaneous fees. But from my understanding of construction projects, in order for a project to be completed and there are incremental increased costs, either the additional $3 million was paid to the contractor in advance using short-term financing, as was used throughout this entire project, or the first selectman has provided the contractor with some sort of assurance in writing that the contractor would be paid the additional lump sum once the total bonding had been issued. So I guess my question to Mr. Frieda was, how were you able to complete this project in August before the town meeting actually approved the additional $3 million on September 23rd?
It doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't matter because you pay it with cash, you bond for it, you do it out of existing revenue, and then you get reimbursed for it. So I'm not sure what your point is here because we covered this time and time again. The bottom line is it's done, it's completed.
No.
What is your point?
There's a very important point here.
What's your point?
The town meeting approved a project for $12 million, and somehow the town spent $15 million on this project before the town meeting approved that incremental $3 million bump up. So I guess I'm trying to understand the steps by which either the short-term financing could be initiated for that additional $3 million or some sort of promissory note that the contractor would be paid once the bonds were issued.
Well, I think you have to talk to the engineer, but I'm going to give you a general statement, okay?
Sure.
That we kept the the contractors at bay until we got the money to pay them. Now I understand what you're saying, okay? Because
I think it's a procedural.
Yeah.
It's purely procedural, purely.
So the contractors did the work, looking for money, so that's why we bonded for the 3 million. It's not, and again, as we said many times, okay, it's not 3 million for the town, it's $270,000. We have to bond for the 3 million and we get reimbursed. That's the way it works. And we've said this 6 times already. You understand that, right?
So we bond for 15 million, and then once we
No.
get the reimbursement from the state and the federal government, then we will
But-
pay our
but-
1.5 million.
Yeah, but you're mixing the stories here, okay?
Right.
We bonded for $3 million at the end. 3 million, not 15. We had already, that was when the project started. The second half of this was bonding for $3 million, of which is going to be $300,000 for us.
But I was told that there was short-term notes that was used to cover all of the costs, the incremental costs. You know, the bills would come in and then the cash has to go out. And then the bonding actually doesn't take place until the project is completed and you take out the bond for the entire amount, not 3 million, but the entire amount. And then once we get reimbursed from both the state and federal government, then obviously we can retire 90% of that bond. Is
So,
that my understanding?
I think you've totally confused the public here, so let me simplify it, okay? So in the rules and regulations of the government, we take out bans, okay? We take out bans. Every municipality does that.
Yes.
It gets us through the expenditure portion of projects.
Right.
And then we end up bonding for it.
Correct.
So the bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, is this, that this project in the end cost $15 million. With the 12 and the 3. 90% of it was not the taxpayers' money. Only 10% of it. So,
So that's ultimately, that's the
yeah, that's
ultimate
ultimately,
net cost.
Right.
I'm saying that you had to have bans
of
for
course,
that additional $3 million.
well, we use bans all the time. What's the point of it?
But how do you authorize bans for an amount of money that you haven't been approved by the town to spend?
Well, bonding requires town approval. Bans are different. You can do bans to roll things over. So I think you've totally confused the public here with this. I know you're asking for a procedural point, but the bottom line is we're in accordance with the rules and regulations of the government. There's no procedural deficiencies here. We have bond attorneys. Did these people do this for a living? Do you think we just arbitrarily make decisions without consulting bond attorneys?
The first part of this project, you received town meeting approval first, and then you issued the bans. For this last piece of the $3 million, you got the bans first, and you got the town meeting approval second.
Well,
That's all I'm trying to
We have the
understand.
flexibility to do that based on bond council advice. So it happens all the time in municipalities.
Okay.
So I want to just stress one more thing.
Yes.
We use bond counsel to guide us through the decisions on what we can do and what we can't do. These people, these individuals, their careers rest on giving us good advice and the right advice. That's why we hire them.
Okay.
So there's no procedural deficiency because their careers are at stake if they give us bad advice.
Right.
That's how it works.
Okay,
I mean,
I noticed a discrepancy in the procedure for the first 12 million versus the procedure for the last 3 million. So that's
All
the
right,
basis
so the
of
answer
my
is,
question.
we take bond counsel advice on what we can do and what we can't do.
Gotcha.
To stay within the procedures and the rules and regulations of the government.
Okay. And one last point, since we're in October now, there will not be any paving of the standard 10 miles of road in our town this year. Is
Not
that
this
correct?
year, no.
Okay.
No,
And-
not this year.
And the reasoning for that, just so I understand, because I know a lot of people have been asking me about this. Oh, you know, am
Well,
I
they should
on
be
the
calling
list?
me. I think what you should say is call Mike.
I will absolutely do that.
Because we have
Yeah.
the answers here, okay?
Okay.
In fairness to you, you don't have the answers. So
No.
it's better for them to call us here.
Right.
And here's the answer, ladies and gentlemen. Because we had another tax increase this year. So we have paved roads every year here. So we took a year off. We're now compiling a list of roads that'll be paved next spring and next fall. And also in conjunction with that we will call a town meeting for bonding approval for some other issues that we have. We're contemplating, working with bond counsel, working with the financial advisor that assists the bond counsel, the attorneys, whether or not we should bond for that this year and get it behind us and utilize the money in the spring and the fall for next year. So we're not sure about that yet. We have to call at the next Board of Selectmen meeting. We'll probably call for a town meeting. Valerie and I were talking about this the other day. So the answer is, because we didn't want to bond in another $2 to $3 million on top of everything else we're doing, of which, let me explain. A new pool roof. We've got a new library that there's expenses to. We've got maintenance issues all over the town. And the pool, and I don't want to alarm anybody, but if we didn't try to improve the pool roof, here's what we found, ladies and gentlemen, during the process. One of the main structural beams has a huge cavity in it, which could have potentially led to the collapse of that. So the point is, and the answer to the question is, sometimes we have to pick and choose what may be the major priorities to solve through spending. We thought we could push the roads back to the spring. That's why we did not pave roads this year, because to add another $3 million with the cost that's gone up on top of everything else we've already bonded for this year, I didn't think it was fair to the people of North Haven. So we're going to start it in the spring. We may add more than the 10 miles in the spring because we didn't do any roads this year. That's the answer to the
So
question.
do you mean the spring of 2025?
Yes.
Okay, so still this fiscal year,
Yeah, but I'm talking, when we pave roads, we think in
typically in
calendar
the fall.
years.
No, I
But yeah,
understand. I
this
understand.
the back half of this
So
fiscal
still
year.
this fiscal year,
Right.
but just the back end of it. Got it.
But that's my point. However, we have to look at the total
Sure.
projects that are really priorities right now.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that's $3.2 million, because we're in the process of calculating that.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's this, okay? Because I had a rating call this week too, which we're waiting for the results next week. We've got to be careful that if it's $3 million for road paving this fiscal year, I'm a little uncomfortable bonding for $6.2 million. The 3.2 we may already have in the pipeline that we're trying to calculate the cost for, and then another $3 million. So I would say that right now, if I had to deliver a percentage on it, it's about 60 to 70% we will pave in the spring, which would be the back half of this fiscal year.
Got it.
And tied one more point, is that I've got the engineer coming up with a list of recommendations as to what roads should be done. So that's kind of where that's at right now.
Great.
I have a point about that list of roads to, because it still bothers me that my street was done, well, I call it the Circle, Blossom, Pequot, Watson.
Yeah.
Was done about a year and a half ago, and it's all dug up from the replacement of the gas lines.
Yes.
And, if there's any way to coordinate, to find out what other roads they're gonna be doing, so we don't, I know that's a lot. I mean, because, and do you know if, the way I understood it, by having a conversation with one of the supervisor, the foreman on the job, when he was in front of my house, I said, what's happening, next? He goes, well, we put in the main pipe, and then later we'll come back and hook up laterally to those folks in the neighborhood that have gas. So that is more involvement with the road. And I said, well, what about after that, when it's all done? Are you going to repave that half of the road? And I got kind of a blank stare.
Yeah, so the way that works is, we're talking gas, you're talking gas or water?
It's gas.
Gas, okay, so, some of the residents there called me directly, and, the gas company is going to, repatch it, smooth it out. They don't pave that half of the road though. So the unfortunate part about this is, we paved that area, as you know, about, let's say 3 years ago, maybe, would you say?
Well, I would say about closer to 2.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and then of course, people call for gas. So the way it works is there's like a year hiatus. In other words, a year after, the gas company, because we've kind of tried to work this out, will say, no, the road was just paved, and in year 2, then they may handle the residents' requests. So, and this has been an ongoing problem here, because people want gas, and after we pave roads, some of them get denied, like I said, in the first year. But you can't delay their requests for more than really a year, unless we create a town ordinance that, as I'd say, it's 5 years, and that's
Well,
controversial.
The
too.
gas line was always there. They just determined that it was old and had to be replaced.
Right.
So there's always been gas in my neighborhood. But I just,
But the lateral cut is.
the lateral cut in, but if one person in the neighborhood wanted gas, I think it would just be like a 6-foot lateral, about 2 feet wide from the main line
Right.
to their house.
Right.
But I look at Tennyson, which was done about 3 years ago, and it was in such horrible shape before it was done, and then it was just beautiful. And now it is just a nightmare again, and I drive over it every day, and every 50 feet, boom, 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 you're driving over the laterals, and it's just worse than it was before it was paved, on
So-
only one half of it.
So that's another street I got involved with, okay?
Tennyson,
because-
poor Tennyson.
And they're patching it, they're gonna smooth it out.
They will,
They're gonna
because
smooth it
it's
out.
really,
Right,
it's almost like a speed bump on half the
Yeah.
road.
exactly.
Direction.
So,
Yeah.
I mean,
But it's a lot.
it's
you
a
know,
lot, it really is.
And it just
I'll give you some good
horrified
news.
me. It
Let me give-
horrified me to see my road dug up.
Let me give you some good news,
Oh,
okay?
good.
So, Kings Highway, when the Slate School was built, the RWA put water in there at their cost, $2.6 million. The road, that patch, it's like a roller coaster. So what they're gonna do, this is where relationships come in now, they're not only gonna smooth that patch out, they've given me, on behalf of the town of North Haven, or for the town of North Haven, $304,000 to pave that entire road next year. So that comes into play with what we just discussed. So that road has to be done as one of the ones that have to be done. But when we look to bond for road paving, that's got to be included in terms of the analysis, but then we back out $304,000 because I already have the check, they already sent it to me. We deposited it downstairs.
No, that's
And
great
if it's 3.2 million for 10 miles, then that's
Then-
like 320 for 1 mile. So
So-
you have 1 mile done.
Right, so that's right. So, we spent a lot of time on this, ladies and gentlemen, and I wish we could satisfy the public in the sense that we know you want gas, in this case that you brought up. So we have this year hiatus, but I don't know if we can stretch the hiatus beyond 1 year
Yeah.
after we pave, and that's the dilemma right there.
Oh, I understand that. Yeah,
So,
sure. All right.
all
Anyway,
right, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Johnson.
Sorry, had CrossFit yesterday, feeling it. Alex Johnson, 50 Fallon Drive. So firstly, I guess since it's the only meeting this month, I think Sally knows, I'm not sure if you do, Mr. Frieda, I always put on a carnival for the community in my front yard. I always have candy that I give out like for regular trick-or-treaters, allergen friendly, gluten free, halal, kosher, so that nobody's ever excluded. I even give out cute Halloween rubber duckies for kids that can't eat candy yet. There'll be games, there'll be prizes, anybody's welcome. They don't even have to be from North Haven. It's totally free. I just do it because it's fun. I usually start about 4 o'clock on Halloween and go to 10 or 11 depending on rain. I'm gonna knock on wood because women's got rained out last year and that was awful. So anyone's welcome. I never turn anyone away and it's gonna be a lot of fun. And also make it worth my mom being so nice and letting me turn her front yard into a definite spectacle. Then secondly, and this is gonna seem a little ironic in the same phrase, but I think it kind of drives home the point that I do want people to really come to the planning and zoning meeting on October 7th at, I believe it's 7 o'clock. I have to always double check, not 7:30. To the point that marijuana is meant for adults, not children, which is why I don't allow smoking at my carnival. whether it's tobacco or marijuana of any kind. But I just wanted to point out some of the things that Mary had said about all the damages supposedly that marijuana could do. There's a liquor store right across where this supposed dispensary is going to go. Alcohol supposedly can be addictive too, but it also depends on the person. Some people who drink alcohol are fine. Some people who smoke marijuana are fine. Some people who drink alcohol can get addicted. Some people who smoke marijuana can get addicted. It's the same ratio. You can get liver damage from alcohol. And if you want to talk about edibles and worry that it looks like kid candy, one, it's the responsibility of the adult to maintain it and keep it in a safe cabinet. The same way in a home, people keep their wine in a concealed cabinet, they keep their liquor on a high shelf, because that's the responsible thing to do. And now we have people who are making alcohol. They even have Snapple seltzers that are alcoholic. Those Dunkin' drinks you see in Stop and Shop, they have alcoholic ones now too. It's the same supposed danger, but we're not telling the liquor store across the street that they have to go. So it seems very hypocritical for us to criticize the dispensary when we're allowing people to go in and buy alcohol with the same risk as marijuana. But on the end of the day, if you don't want to participate in that, then that's your choice, but don't make that choice for other individuals. It should be each individual's body and each individual's choice. And secondly, also I wanted to point out that she keeps quoting vaping. It's not a vape store, it's a marijuana recreational store. There are edibles, yes. There's marijuana for smoking, yes. But there are also concentrates. My really good friend who grew up in North Haven with me takes marijuana concentrates, and they're basically, they can be creams, they can be balms to treat her CPTSD, sorry, it's a lot of letters, which stands for Complex Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder. And a lot of people use that. And I know that she also kept quoting about, well, people can get delivery. I looked up. Fine Federal has a requirement of $75 minimum before they're willing to deliver, plus an additional $10 fee. Your average 20-pack of edibles, or if you want to buy the marijuana flower, costs usually about $25. And it's 20-pack for the edibles. Nobody is buying like, oh my gosh, that would have to be like almost 75 edibles. Nobody is using that in a very short amount of time. That's very expensive. Nobody can afford that. And that's very unfair to individuals who come from lower income. And it creates a whole accessibility issue. If you want to take the bus, it's 2 hours. If you go Hamden, you have to transfer to New Haven. That's not fair to seniors and individuals with visual impairments. It's not fair to those who can't afford cars. I just really, and I will speak even more on all of these things, but I just plead people to come to this meeting and to vote to allow this dispensary and let people make individual choices about their own bodies. We already allow that for health care here in Connecticut, and we made that very firm after Roe v. Wade. It should not be very different. If you do not want to participate in it, that is perfectly fine. But don't make choices for other people who do. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else? And no further comment? All right. Motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right.
I'll
is there a
second that motion.
All right. First, we have a motion. We have a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.